Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion, Book 1, Chapter 13, continued, now wrapping up this last section where Calvin continues to defend the doctrine of the Trinity against anti Trinitarian errors and heresies. We're going to look at section 24 through the end of the chapter, which is section 29. And he covers a lot of the same ground that he already has earlier in chapter 13. So I'm just going to kind of give you a smattering of what he includes here to maybe whet your appetite over the next couple of minutes, so you'll go back and essentially read him yourself. One of the arguments he makes is that to essentially explain your anti-Trinitarian doctrine, you need to end up coming to absurd conclusions about specific points in God's word that begin to become very hard to logically or even with biblical coherence maintain in the light of this anti-Trinitarian doctrine. That is to say, the opening of John 1 in his gospel, or the book of the Hebrews. If we have this doctrine, and specifically against the divinity of Jesus Christ as the Son of God, we have to introduce this conclusion that the giver of life and light, John 1, who is worshipped by angels, Hebrews, is somehow, in actuality, finite, mortal, and common. We have to reach that conclusion in terms of anti-Trinitarian doctrine, which Calvin would say, obviously, we can't do that. It's absurd. Another one of the powerful arguments he makes in here is that, okay, even if we were to concede that Jesus Christ isn't the God-man, but is only some sort of man chosen or begotten by God, and is not fully God, co-eternal, all that language we would use to support the doctrine of the Trinity, then we still have to deal with the way in which the New Testament portrays and explains the exaltation of the Son, that he is going to receive honor, glory, and power in, we would say, godlike terms. So if he isn't God from all eternity, three persons united in one essence, then how does the exaltation of the mortal, finite, and common in the man Jesus of Nazareth not create a collision of two gods in heaven? We could say they would say the Father who was and the Son who now is. But rather there's cohesion in terms of the unity of God. And we see that clearly displayed in how we can clear up misapprehensions of the Trinity in the way in which Calvin shows forth the redemptive ministry and work of the Godhead displayed in history. What do we have taking place? The Father sends, the Son redeems, and the risen and ascended Son sends the Spirit to indwell his people. That understanding from the redemptive history and work of God on mission to redeem a people for himself clears up naturally a lot of anti-Trinitarian heresies that come against this doctrine. He then concludes in specifically section midway through 27, 28, and 29, the misuse of his modern day heresies in his own day, but we could make the same jump for us, the misuse of the church fathers in attempting to defend anti-Trinitarian doctrine. And he says essentially his errors and opponents against the doctrine of the Trinity make two errors as they attempt to go to the church fathers like an Irenaeus or a Tertullian or a Justin Martyr. And that is, they fail to understand that there are category distinctions in which Tertullian uses words like arrangement and economy to talk about the doctrine of the Trinity and not person and essence. So if a modern day reader goes back with the language of persons and essence to define and understand the Trinity in mind, and they go and read Tertullian, and all they find is economy and arrangement, and they cherry pick phrases to support their view, they're probably going to find them because he's speaking about something different. He's speaking in different categories, and we need to be careful readers when we approach them, understanding their categories that they introduce on their own terms. The other error he says they introduce is that they fail to understand that the church fathers of past days were actually addressing heresies, and sometimes anti-Trinitarian heresies, in which they will restate in their own ancient day the position of anti-Trinitarian doctrine in order to refute it. And so you're often cherry picking a phrase that not only they would disagree with, but if you keep reading, they adamantly do disagree with in their following passages. Well, that was Calvin's conclusion there, chapter 13, in defending the doctrine of the Trinity. I hope that was beneficial and that it whets your appetite to go and read that for yourself.